Hey, I'm Charles Hudson. I'm a venture partner at SoftTech VC. We're an early stage venture capital group based out of Palo Alto, California. I'm also the CEO of an early stage games company called Bionic Panda Games, and we're here to talk about app discovery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of our panelists, starting with Paul, to give a brief self-intro. Then we'll just jump into a bunch of questions, and we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. So I'm going to let Paul get started.
All right. Okay. So my name is Paul Chen, and I head developer relations for Papaya Mobile. And Papaya Mobile, who we are, is we're essentially a distribution play. We help developers get cost-effective distribution through two primary products. One is our social gaming network with over 65 million users, targeted specifically at Android. And the other product that we have is a cross-promotional network, also Android-focused. And it's a forum, it's a network that allows developers to trade traffic at free cost.
My name is AKHAVAN. I'm the Vice President of Partnerships at Tapjoy. We are the largest app distribution platform on iOS and Android. Our network drives over 1.3 million app installs and engagements every day. We also help free-to-play app developers monetize their apps by providing users the option to interact with advertising to earn virtual currency.
My name is NABERGOJ. I was the founding CEO of a company called Outfit7, which grew to over 400 million downloads within 1 year without any marketing spend. And recently I started my own company called Addiction, which is a distribution network on iOS with products like Apple Day, one of the leading world daily deals platform for mobile games and apps. And we also operate a network of viral apps that drive a lot of organic viral installs.
I'm Charles YIM. I'm head of mobile application partnerships at Google. Our team manages our relationships with mobile game developers on behalf of Google's advertising business. I previously led our games partnerships at a startup called AdMob, which is a mobile ad network that was acquired by Google about 2 years ago.
Hello, my name is Kim CARLSON. I'm the head of performance sales at InMobi, the largest independent mobile ad network. And my team focuses on both app download user acquisition for games, mobile-first apps, and then also brand lead generation.
All right, I just want to jump in with a kind of a general question to get us started. There's so many different app stores out there that developers could target. There's obviously Google Play, iOS, Amazon Kindle. In your experience as panelists, how universal are sort of the techniques and tips that work for app discovery? How universal are they across app stores, or should developers really tailor their approach for the specifics of a given platform?
Well, yeah, I'll start off. I think it really depends on the method of app discovery that you're using for that particular platform. So, for example, if you're going out and trying to buy installs, you're acquiring users, the value of each user on each platform is slightly different, right? iOS, the value of the users are slightly higher than on Google. On Amazon, I've been hearing that the users are monetizing 4x what they are on iOS. So that means that you can actually go out and buy traffic at different rates among the different platforms, and you probably need to have that under consideration as you're going and getting your app discovered. For things like mechanics like cross-promotion, that's more similar across the different platforms. And the way that it would be different is finding different partners to cross-promote with. So that's a brief answer to that.
In our experience at Tapjoy, I think at a high level, the iOS App Store still really kind of rewards velocity and speed of getting a lot of downloads in a short amount of time. Whereas more broadly, Google Play seems to reward longer-term engagement metrics, high levels of retention, DAUs, avoiding having users uninstall your app, good ratings and reviews, things like that.
I think they're going to get more and more universal over time as we move away from charts. In iOS 6, as you know, the center of the App Store is Genius, and it's going to be really around recommendations. And I think in a year from now, we're going to see a very different App Store on both iOS and Android. So I think the principles of marketing, acquiring users, and exciting users around your game and app is going to be around in the way you promote it with channels available. And they're going to be traditional channels, but also channels that are available today are going to change. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in virality, Facebook and Twitter, that have not been explored. But I think in general, we're going to move away from ranks and charts and focus on more traditional marketing principles, which is about getting your game in front of lots of users in the right way and making it viral.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question because if you look at the title of the presentation, it's about app discovery, and really the question is, do users have a problem discovering apps? They're pretty well trained to go to the rankings and the charts, or to pay attention to recommendations of apps within other apps. But a lot of these questions are more about app marketing, not so much app discovery. And if we look at that specific question about different marketplaces, there are two marketplaces that are very mature and have lots of marketing tools. iOS and Android OS, the primary Android Google Play store. If you're looking at other stores like Barnes and Noble's Nook, or if you're looking at the Amazon App Store, they're smaller, they're more niche. Whether they're appropriate for a developer, I think, is a question of do you have smaller, more niche content that might speak towards the Nook's audience more so than the vast ocean that is every audience that is Android, right? Also, the tools to effectively market specifically on those platforms haven't been built. They're not as mature. So that's a little bit of a loaded question, I would say, Charles. But
Good.
it's sort of a question about how much do you want to focus on marketing.
Yeah, just to follow with that, I think that one of our views is creating a contextually relevant environment for the publishers. So we made a recent acquisition that speaks to that in terms of app galleries, so that publishers can create a white label solution for their own, quote, app store within the content that has curated content that's user-friendly, that's fun for the user to sort of discover and distribute. So it's sort of a different feel from what was just discussed, but it talks about marketing and how you're going to, as an app developer, actually go about marketing in the future.
And I think it was Andre who already mentioned that sort of the importance of chart position. And when I think of app discovery, I think my simple rubric has been app discovery equals maximizing chart position.
Yeah.
And for how much longer do you think that will be the case?
I think it's done. So I think Apple is changing algorithm this week. The algorithms are changing this week, and you're going to see the charts are going to change a lot. So Apple just removed the #1 app yesterday. Pyramid Run is taken down. So they pulled Pyramid out of the App Store, Pyramid Run. So, and they're going under massive redesigning of the algorithm of the App Store. This is going to impact everybody across the board. With iOS 6, the center experience on discovery is going to be genius. Right now it's categories and top 25 charts, which I think is doing a pretty good job. Honestly, at this 24 categories, paid and free, this 300 paid, 300 free per category. There's 600, that's about 14,400 apps that are exposed at so one tap, two taps away from the user. I think the categories are now doing a really good job. And I think Genius is going to do a better job because it's really focused and the users are going to, so it's going to, right now you have to register for Genius, but in the new iOS 6, as you know, that's not going to be the case. And they have integration with Facebook and Twitter. They know lots of things about your app, preferences. So they're going to recommend, I think, relevant content to you. I think we're going to see lots of things between changing of the algorithms happening right now, a more curated approach from Apple and Genius is going to transform the way we think about app discovery.
Yeah, I agree with Andre. I think the existing approach of focusing so much on the charts, I mean, to me, that's like the shotgun approach. And things are now evolving more to like pull out the sniper rifle and actually understand who is the target audience for your app and what is the most cost-effective way to target that audience. And things are very quickly moving in that direction.
I recommend to developers to imagine a world where there's no app store, where there's only app search, for example. How do you think about how do you think about marketing and promoting your game, right? When there's no app store, where the only app store discovery is search. Like, how are you going to market your game in that world, right? So there's lots of companies like ours that provide it, but there's also web and there's social and there's viral and there's PR and there's events and this is how you acquire users for your creative content. I mean, it's a creative industry and it's going to go through the same cycle as every other creative industry in history.
Anything to add? No pressure. So I have sort of another question related to that. If the app stores are continuing to invest more in personalization and customization and recommendation, what does it mean for your respective businesses going forward, since those are sort of the entry point that people open when they're looking for apps?
I'll take a stab at this one. I think the more interesting question is not what does it mean for our businesses, but what does this mean for game developers, right? At least, even if you don't like the current world order where there is a regimented chart and ranking system and you're trying to climb up it, at least you understand what the world looks like. If we've removed those constraints, and it's just, wow, we're going from a single-dimensional world where we understand we want to be higher into a multi-dimensional world where we don't know where we're supposed to be and how we get there. It's pretty scary. And I think the big challenge that will pose for game developers is that they're really going to have to become consumer marketers. You know, you're really being put in the position where you have to market a consumer product. You know, and sometimes your potential customers, they know what they want, maybe they don't know what they want, maybe they don't know what flavor, what it is they want. My favorite kind of analog for this is bottled water. You know, if you look on this table, we have a bottle of Aquafina bottled water, we have a bottle of Dasani bottled water. And you can probably think of half a dozen other brands of water, but at the end of the day, they all kind of package the same product, H2O. So how is it that all these companies differentiate to get market share? You know, it's brand building and consumer marketing. And so that's, you know, that's the kind of the brave new world that we're trending towards for game developers where, you know, at least in the past, if someone was looking for a golf game or looking for a solitaire game, they went to the App Store, they looked at which solitaire games were highly ranked in the App Store, and they picked probably one of the top 5 ranked ones. And if you're in the business of building solitaire games, then your goal was to be in the top 5, right? Now you're entering that world where you have to figure out, wow, how do I brand and market a different type of solitaire game versus all the other ones? So.
I might add to that too, because I have a little bit more background on the brand performance and the branded advertisers coming in with apps from a consumer products perspective. So there will be some downward pressure in terms of cost and inventory, and the LTVs of these branded apps are very, very different than the gaming community. So it is going to be an interesting, probably 12 to 18 months as you see these big brands come in with arguably, yes, utility type apps or content apps, but still if you're side by side with a game developer who is starting to advertise as a consumer product, consumer brand, it will be, there's just going to be some volatility in the market that I don't think we've seen in the last 2 to 2.5 years.
So I want to pick up on this whole idea of becoming a better marketer. And you know, we've seen on the web how important SEO can be for improving your content discoverability. I'd be curious to get the panelists' thoughts on how much time going forward developers should spend on trying to optimize their app descriptions or otherwise make themselves more sort of search friendly in this new world.
I think there's actually two questions there. One is like the SEO, which is like the metadata and text description and so on for search, and that's, I think it's already been answered, right, by the Apple's acquisition of Chomp, and I don't think there's, and all the stuff that Apple is doing right now, I think SEO, the way you think about it right now, it's, you know, you can just forget about it. But then there's the other thing, which is still going to be relevant in the future, I think, and even more so. And that's the notion that the user downloads something that he doesn't know what it is, right? He has no chance of playing or using your app before he downloads it, right? And this is still going to be the case. So he'll basically cast his vote to your game or app based on your packaging, right? Your icon, the description, the title, developer, ratings, reviews, screenshots, context, invitation from your friend. So those are the most important things, really. It's like, it's more important than the game and app itself, right? And some developers are doing better, some developers do a worse job in that. But I think going forward, I think it's really going to be important as part of what he has described, like being a really consumers-focused, you know, as a developer. You want to really spend a lot of time. In my previous company, we were obsessed about the icon. Like we spent 2 months polishing every single icon and running multiple tests to get the right icon that converts the best, right? And we did it, you know, for every single app, and we did it for text descriptions and so on. So I think it's important because this is what the consumers see for the first time, and they will click install. You know, in iOS 6 for free apps, there's no more password required, as you know. So the user would just base their judgment based on the packaging of your app, icon description, and so on. They'll click install, and they will cast their vote to your game based on whatever they see before they try it.
I think right now, everything that Andre just said, it's not being fully utilized by the developer community. Because if you look at the App Store itself and how much real estate you actually get to describe your app, the icons, the images, the videos, the descriptions, people just are not utilizing that piece of real estate as much as they can. It's a prime place where you can actually market, describe, and tell the user base what your app is about, and people need to continue to improve upon that. Right now, it's just not being utilized well enough.
Yeah, so in the new iOS 6, by the way, as you know, the App Store page is changed. So there's different tabs. One of them is, so screenshots come at the top, right? First you see screenshots, then text description. Then you have reviews, and reviews also are connected with Facebook. So people will be able to like or review the app, connect with the Facebook account. So this is something that developers are going to have to focus a lot more. I think you should start doing it right now.
Going forward, I mean, we've talked about sort of two big themes. One is sort of social data, kind of what your friends do. The other one is obviously collaborative filtering with these app stores sitting on top of tons and tons of data, download data and usage data. How do you all see the balance between sort of more machine-driven collaborative filtering type approaches and social approaches playing out in app discovery going forward?
Well, given from Papaya's perspective, where we actually have a social network with social graph data, we're still able to collect user data that an app store, we believe, can't collect right now. Because through our social network, we're able to see, what games a person is playing, who they're recommending the games to, the interaction of users when they're playing a particular game, and all this information is still not available to the app store. So I think that there is still a lot of value in third-party solutions that add data to the App Store, because the App Store right now just doesn't have all of it.
Yeah, TapTrack, I mean, we definitely think a recommendations engine is pretty vital, and we've built that out. But I still think one of the most critical bits of kind of a social element is real-world interaction, like people showing each other an app because they think it's that cool. And I don't think anything can replace that, so I think that's really critical.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's early days. I mean, a lot of these comments and kind of questions are focused on merchandising. You're merchandising a product, and how's that merchandising changing? Does social data help you merchandise more effectively? In theory, yes. I think it's early days. We don't have great tools that are built around using social data to merchandise apps, much less any other type of e-commerce online yet. But they're getting there. At Google, we look at, we have all sorts of different types of products. Most of you are aware we have this social product called Google+. Are we looking at incorporating Google+ into the Android market and seeing what are your Google+ friends playing? What are they +1ing in the market? Sure, those are all things that we evaluate, and there's a path to a future where that can make a difference. But it's a question of how fast we'll get there and how rocky that road will be.
Yeah, I would agree. And then going back to the contextual piece on the publisher side, perhaps there's a social element that gets built into the recommendation engine that becomes that white label solution for a publisher to be able to create their own app store and have some sort of marrying of the social data that is available at the same time.
So to add one more thing, so in terms of social, I think we primarily were focused in a previous company on real recommendation. So when a user plays an app and there's the fun factor optimized, then he'll show it to his friends, and the power of that is incredible. So I think every game, no matter what the genre, has the potential to tap into that kind of fun factor and optimize for that, so that users will, want to share their experience with their friends around them, and they will drive call to action, which is like install the game right now. And there's the other social, which is still, I think, being underutilized by a lot of developers, which is Open Graph. I mean, we've seen very few developers doing deep integration with the Open Graph, and that's a huge opportunity. We launched an experimental simple app last week. It was like a 20% of time, right, where we built some funny stuff. It's called Pimp My Hair, and we launched it last week without any marketing spend. And it grew virally to over 1 million users in a couple of days, just by being integrated with Facebook in the right way. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in Open Graph.
So I want to get your collective talk. I mean, we've talked a lot about paid acquisition. We've talked about App Store market. I want to get your thoughts on cross-promotion, sort of best practices and tips for folks in the audience who are thinking about working with a cross-promotion partner, whether it's to promote their own apps within their own network or to work with other people. Just sort of what are some things to look out for and what works well?
I think one thing to look out for is just this straight trading install for install, because you kind of remove the economic components of that. I mean, not all users are equal, and it sets up bad incentives where basically the guy you're trading traffic with might be sending you the lowest value users. So I would just encourage folks to still put some economic value on any kind of trading of traffic.
Sure, I agree with that. And I think when you're trading traffic, it's very important to also analyze if your users are going to somebody else's app, what effect does that have on the revenue of your particular title? are you giving away your best users, or are you giving away some, like you said, some of your lower quality users? Being careful who you trade with and what you actually trade. But given that, trading traffic in terms of a cross promotion, a lot of the benefit comes from getting, right now, still doing burst type campaigns and getting up into the charts in order to get that organic traffic. A lot of the cross promotions deals that are being charted out right now in the industry, a lot of it is, let's get a huge amount of traffic into one particular title, we'll trade that, and then we'll benefit from the organic traffic that results from that.
Yeah, so I mean, so it's also, I wouldn't simplify it that way. I think burst is still going to be very important going forward, even if we move away from the charts. And the reason for that is that you want to get out with impact. And if the game is great, and if there's some viral, natural viral or social viral components in it, so just social viral, if you burst enough users in the same amount of time, you can get through a pretty high, K factor in day one. You don't want to, I think still you will have the opportunity to get network effects with your game. And I think burst is going to do a lot of work for you if you do it in the right way. And the other thing is user, revenue attribution based on channel that you acquire users from. Like you can exchange installs, but you have to be a little more sophisticated and use infrastructure that will support attribution. Look, how valuable are those users to you, and then you can then see which channels are worth exchanging with or just buying from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think that the burst model will be going away anytime soon. I think that has a very valid position in the marketplace, but as we're saying, is that the LTV of that user, the more data that we gather in terms of what channels to use, whether it's cross-promotion and trading users, how much of that should be part of that sort of burst strategy?
So I want to pick up a little bit on burst and just sort of marketing in general. I think there's probably a lot of people in this room who are spending a ton of money on customer acquisition. And I've heard CPAs that I scratch my head and say, I don't see how that can possibly be LTV positive in the long run. So where are we in the market? I mean, how much of what we're seeing in the market in terms of spends and budgets is ROI driven versus froth, customer acquisition, bubble, weird behavior? No need to self-incriminate either. So
I think still quite a lot of it's ROI driven. I mean, looking at the top 100 grossing apps, 80% of those work with Tapjoy, for example, and a lot of that's because they're getting a pure ROI on those installs. But certainly you have platform players like Greed, DNA, Zynga that are not buying just for the ROI of their title today, but building a platform for a longer term play.
Yeah, that's I would concur with that and expand on that. And that participating in markets tend to be very efficient. They try to drive to the most efficient clearing price, right? Asking whether you're buying installs on a network or you're participating in an ad network to acquire users, or even when you participate in cross promotion, you're still paying for traffic. You're paying for it with a different type of currency, your own traffic. It's very ROI efficient for somebody, but the general question is, I mean, what everyone wants to know is it worthwhile to buy traffic either with hard dollars or by giving up some of my own traffic? Well, it's kind of analogous to, is participating in the stock market profitable? For some people, it's extremely profitable. For a lot of people, they're less than satisfied with the outcome, right? And markets are dynamic. They're not static every day, and you have different participants from day to day. So when you try to, when you decide that you want to go to market and either buy traffic on an ad network, or if you want to try to acquire it via buying directly from other developers or participating in a cross-promotion network, it's a question of what are the market factors and conditions when you choose to play. Some of the companies that were mentioned earlier, like a lot of the foreign game developers, who've come to the U.S. markets recently, they've come to the markets and decided that they were going to spend a lot of money, on specific periods to support their launches. That means because markets are efficient and they drive to efficient clearing prices, if you're an indie developer and you try to spend $50,000 on the same day that a very large company decides to spend $3 million, your clearing price is not, you are not setting the clearing price, they are. So I think you have to be really judicious about how you choose to participate in markets, because that's what they are.
I want to pick back up on something that Andre said. How important are sort of outside of App Store marketing channels or distribution channels, whether it's PR, whether it's app reviewers, whether it's blogs, just fan video? What are other channels for those who maybe don't want to spend their whole life trying to optimize spend or SEO? What other channels can be effective for folks?
I mean, social viral for sure is probably the number one. And integrating with, as I said before, with Open Graph, there's so much opportunities there. Going very deep into the integration, I think would provide a lot of natural virality to the games. And you don't want to do it as an add-on. It's like, okay, now we have a game, we want to make it viral. But how do you create a social experience around your product from the get-go, right? And then you build the mechanic in the game around that. That's going to really be a very different situation for you. Traditional marketing like PR, it's great for brand awareness. Will not drive a lot of downloads and downloads. The conversion from web is tough to the App Store, right? But it's important as well for brand awareness and building a brand and so on.
Just to add some additional comments on the social comment that Andre spoke of earlier. We have a lot of developers on our social network that think that social traffic is just it's free and it's going to be the cure-all for them to get that app discovered. But they haven't really done a lot of the work to make the game truly social so that virality can actually exist. Sometimes they'll just layer on a leaderboard or achievement, but that doesn't fundamentally make the game social. In order to make it social, you need to be able to, say, visit each other's virtual environments, be able to gift and trade virtual items with each other, be able to invite friends that are also playing similar genres of games. So when you're trying to make your game social in order to get social traffic, it has to be done from the very bottom up, and not enough developers are doing that just yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I tend to take a perspective beyond just games as I look at a lot of mobile apps and, the core of social in your experience is it meant to be shared, right? And there are mobile apps that have gotten tremendous virality and distribution by being shared via social mechanism. Instagram is the perfect example, right? Lots of people discovered Instagram because they saw these hipster, old school photos being posted on Facebook. More recently, we saw a lot of the mobile video-based apps getting lots of traffic that way too, like SocialCam and Vidi. So, there are examples. They're not necessarily games examples, but then it's a question of what game experiences lend themselves to being shared in that manner.
Yeah, just one more note on the topic of promoting an app outside of a native app environment. It might sound a little crazy, but if you look at what's happening in Japan, I think Gree's the #1 TV advertiser there, right? You ride a subway, you see ads for mobile games. So I think, a year or 2 years from now, we'll probably be seeing that here as well.
Yeah, and if you look at Angry Birds, Robit, for example, it's pure brand company, right? Brand-building company. They've done an amazing job. They really are doing a genius job at building a brand for Angry Birds so they can stay relevant in the consumer mind. Otherwise, people would be pretty tired about it. But they're staying top of the mind by doing lots of very creative things with marketing there and building their brands outside of the App Store.
Right, and that goes along with what we said earlier in terms of becoming a consumer marketer, taking on different channels. I think we're in a very obviously immature market in the mobile space in terms of whether we're talking game apps or other types of apps. But it would be probably prudent to look at those channels in the next 18 months, especially if what we're talking about Gree might be doing in Japan. So it's probably coming down the pike, yeah.
So I want to touch on one other thing related to being discovered, which is sort of getting featured by an app store. I think every developer dreams that my app could be on the front page of the iOS store, whatever it might be. Any thoughts from the panelists about A, what kind of impact developers can see these days from being featured, and B, any sort of best tips or thoughts about sort of what's in the mind of the people who make the featuring decisions?
As far as tips, I think it's use the latest technology that each platform is offering to make sure you're fully taking advantage of the latest OS and the latest devices. In terms of volume, on average, a featured spot on either platform nets north of 100,000 installs per day, so it's definitely significant.
Yeah, I've seen developers on our network, once they get featured, from a DAU perspective as well, going from something in the 10K range, shooting all the way up to 110K just after a couple days of featuring.
Yeah, I think that's all prudent advice. In terms of if you're looking to get featured, usually there are groups of people who work on the App Store teams at the platform owners, so at Google or at Apple, and generally they're looking for apps that will showcase the best features, like the best of the platform. Personally, I wouldn't encourage folks to spend too much time trying to get featured because it's hit or miss. It's like a 1 in a million thing, and that again, the teams that decide what get featured, they're small teams of 3 or 4 people, and they can't respond to requests from every single app developer out there, going beyond just games. So if you do get featured, it's a wonderful thing, and certainly you should apply to be featured. But I don't think that's the best use of everyone's time. If you look at a lot of the very successful companies in this space, like the folks at Play First who were the presentation prior to this, it's a lot of just very hard work and testing over many months, and you see incremental progress, and that's how most businesses will get built.
I want to pause for a moment and see if there's any audience questions. Otherwise, I have plenty more to go with, but I want to make sure we make this interactive and give you all an opportunity. So I think I just ask you wait for the microphone, and if it's for a specific panelist, that you address that person. This gentleman here.
First off, thank you very much for taking the time to educate us here. 20-plus year marketer, so hearing about consumer marketing being front and center is like mana to me. But I'm wondering, you know, our company's expressions, we've got a new app coming out, new racing app called Left Lane Louie. We don't have the resources to launch Spider-Man style. So when you look at the room, I'll bet 80% of the room are people like ourselves. What's your guidance to help us burst through in the face of these behemoths that have budgets that we can only, frankly, at this stage, dream of?
I'll take a stab at that, I guess. I think that's a tough question. You have a marketplace, like I said before, it's very immature, so you have some, got a big 80-20 rule going in the marketplace. I think we just have to you have to search for relevancy. There's a lot going on, I think, from my perspective, on a big spray and pray kind of model. So it's chewing up a lot of inventory in the marketplace. I think down the line, the actual results in LTV long term are still quite unknown. So, I mean, my best suggestion would be from a relevancy perspective. What that really means is contextually, are you in the right place? You're a consumer marketer now. Are you reaching the right audience that you should be, given the packaging, given the look and feel, given the obvious other ones like demographics? So that would be my best.
Yeah, I mean, build a better product and be scrappy. I return to kind of consumer products as an analog. If you look at a lot of these products, they're commodities and they have giant companies that have been incumbents for years. But look at things like the Greek yogurt fad that's hit the U.S. in the last 5 years. 5 years ago, there was no Greek yogurt, and there were these two probably really large companies that own 95% of the yogurt market in the U.S., Dannon and Yoplait. But there was this guy, who had this dream about making Greek yogurt popular in the U.S., and, he didn't have the resources of those giant, food conglomerates, but he built a better product that people liked. He was scrappy. He went out and turned over all the rocks to find all the marketing levers he could, and today he's got a gigantic company. I mean, that's, again, a 1 in a million story, and that's the nature of competition, right? Like, you have lots of excellent competitors out there, some of whom have much greater resources than you do, but that's not to say there isn't opportunity. You just, I guess I'm trying to lend the perspective that it's possible, but it's also very, very hard.
I think for any one independent studio to think they can take on the likes of Greed, DNA, and Zynga, it's going to be very, very difficult. You're not going to be able to outspend them. One thing that I've always been advocating our developer community to do is to work together. Right now, the mobile space is so large and there's so many opportunities that I don't think it's a zero-sum game. Everybody can win if they kind of collaborate and form alliances. And that's why we're a big fan of cross-promotion, because if you are able to go out and form alliances with developers, whether they be partners or people that you don't really know very well, if it's just being done through a cross-promotion network, being able to get together and combat the big guys as a group, you have a much better shot than going at it alone.
I can give some advice for iOS. So number one, take enough time to add polish. So if it takes another month or two to add polish, to polish the game, do it. This is not the web where you iterate and you improve it. You launch a product. The product is being shipped. It's in the store. Once you launch an update, you have 2 versions of the game, and then another update, you have 3 versions of the game. You want to launch a finished product. Test it in a market, do geo-launch, but then when you launch it, it has to be complete and polished. And in the App Store especially, people who own one of these devices, they really care about aesthetics and detail. So your game has to be polished, and it will just do such an amazing job in driving people to not only download but engage with the game if they see the quality or the lack thereof, right? So quality really is important. Number 2, packaging. Like, really spend a lot of time creating and optimizing for the first few seconds when the user has started to experience your game and app. And the experience starts when he sees your icon in the App Store. That's the first experience. Then he goes to the App Store page, just a couple of more seconds, optimized for those seconds. And then when you open the app, what does that few seconds look like? Because this is a phone, it's a calendar, it's a messaging device, it's many, many things. You have a few seconds to engage the user. And then he'll leave, he'll come back. And the question is, how do you engage him and so on? But optimize for the first few seconds of the experience. Number 4, integrate with social channels. Facebook, and primarily Twitter is now in iOS 5 is natively integrated. So we have acquired one app called AKHAVAN, which grew from 0 to millions of people in a matter of a couple of weeks just based off of the Twitter's integration. At one point, they had more than 1% of the overall worldwide Twitter traffic just because they integrated very deeply with Twitter. And number 5, apply for a new program, which is called Apple Day Stars. So it's not launched publicly yet, but I'm going to share it here now. We're starting a program for indie developers where we're going to drive not only burst, but sustain installs of quality users across the network of apps to your game if we see that there's a fit within our network. So that's called Apple Day Stars. You can pick me up for the show and I'll tell you more about it.
If I may, just a quick follow-up. First off, thank you. And what thrills me for our group is that we're doing a fair amount of what you've just suggested. Charles, you in particular, I've had my eye on, and I don't mean that in a creepy way. I'm just wondering, what does a developer like myself, Harris Corin Expressions, I think I've sent you about 5 emails or so, and I know you get a million of them. I would love to get some time with you. What do developers like myself do to get that type of time with someone like yourself, to get the valuable insight?
Well, fortunately, there are a lot of Googlers here at the show today, so it's tough. I agree. It can be frustrating if you're a developer and you're trying to contact someone at a platform owner or a major ad network. I'm very sympathetic to the email black hole because I've worked at a couple startups myself. If you've sent me 5 emails in the past and I haven't read them, I apologize. Come find me after the panel.
Thank you.
I can't.
Yeah, I got another question for all the developers in the audience who have a game to launch this year. Oh, sorry, here. Who have a game to launch this year, and they'd love 1 million users, and they'd love to work with one of your firms. How much is it going to cost?
We do everything based off of a revenue share model, so for us, there's no upfront cost. For our cross-promotion network, that's completely free. We don't take a cut off of that.
In our network, it's a bidded system where you only pay for an install when a user downloads and actually opens the app, and you can bid as low as 10 cents.
So we're obviously a CPC network as well. So, our model is to price on a CPC very aggressively. We are global, so I don't know if that plays into your model. But we do back out to a CPI goal, whatever is given in the model, and our algorithm will match or optimize to that CPI on an ongoing basis.
Google has several similar CPC-based ad units. We also recently integrated AdWords for mobile, so you could actually be an AdWords keyword buyer. I think the keywords map against the descriptions of the apps in the App Store and kind of relevant contextual information like that. With respect to cost, our platforms are all self-service. You can test budgets as small as $10, $20 if you want. I don't know what kind of insights you'll get from them. The cost is really a matter of what you're prepared to spend. The great thing about shows like Casual Connect is if you walk into the hall, there's no dearth of vendors out there who exist solely to help you acquire users and to monetize them. I mean, there are lots and lots of companies, including the ones here and the ones that are out there, that are very eager to help you. So I would encourage you to assess your options.
We've got one here, and then I think another one down there next. So this gentleman first.
There was discussion earlier about the disappearance of charts in the App Store. I'm just wondering what your opinion is of what app stores could do better now and what the App Store of the future looks like.
And one thing that app stores can definitely do better is hide the apps you already have installed, because those apps take up a lot of real estate for a user and prevent them from discovering new apps. So I think that small change would be pretty significant.
want to make sure I heard that right. Did you say hide those?
Yeah, for
apps?
example, if you're looking at the top 25 charts, right? Like hide the apps that I already have installed so they're not clogging up.
Yeah. So some way of saying that, kind of a frequency capping model where you're not seeing the same thing, even if you're going to pull an app out of the market, out of the chart.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if I already have the app installed, it shouldn't be displayed to me
Right.
when I'm surfing Google Play or
Right.
Apple's App Store.
Yeah. Agreed.
This gentleman here in the front.
I just thought I'd put an idea forward. It hasn't been discussed much, and a little bit out of the box thinking for some of the developers who are asking around marketing. And this in relation to hardware partnerships. The Samsungs and the emerging players out of Asia that are vying in a very competitive hardware space with pretty large marketing budgets, and when they're emerging into new markets and new segments, they're looking for new marketing ideas, and they're looking at applications as a way to drive that hardware purchase and brand awareness in a joint branding fashion. Any thoughts around how the developers here can tackle that and get closer with hardware manufacturers who are doing, the business is doing very well? And I'm not just talking about Apple, but I'm talking about some of the other players that are emerging.
I think if you're going after hardware players, it's important to select only a few and not to cover the entire spectrum, because each hardware provider wants you to optimize your potential, or your title to that particular piece of hardware. Samsung would want you to optimize your games for their CPU and GPUs. Say if you're working on a device that has an NVIDIA Tegra type chip, and they want your game to be optimized for that particular piece of hardware. To optimize a piece of hardware across a lot of devices, it just isn't possible. So if you are going to go after the hardware guys, pick a few, especially ones that you have good connections with, and then work with them.
Yeah, I would say going for a pre-install deal is similar to hoping to get featured by Apple. It's kind of a Hail Mary, and you could end up spending a lot of time and not netting a lot of results. So I'd be cautious there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Really, if you're a startup or if you're a small team, time is not your friend. You only have so many hours in the day. And trying to work with these large consumer electronic companies that move very slow and make decisions by committee. If you know folks there and you have an inside track, that's great. If you're applying to some sort of program where you're hoping to be considered to be pre-installed on a device, I think all the time and energy you spend on that can be better served, working on a better product, polishing, as Andre had mentioned earlier. It's one strategy. It's a very risky one, and it's one that can, suck up a lot of your time.
Yeah, and it's worthless. It's useless. Yeah. We've done it before. Everybody wanted to have talking Tom on a device. We talked to everybody. We did it. It was like useless.
Well, I would just add to that, because working with hardware providers, it doesn't just mean pre-installs. A lot of the hardware providers like Samsung, Lenovo, Motorola, NVIDIA, they all have their own individual app stores as well. So if you're going to work with them, you're right. Getting a pre-install it's about the same. The chance of you getting pre-installed is about the same as you getting featured, probably. But then being a part of their app store and them providing marketing within their own app store, that's certainly something to consider.
Okay. I don't know if we have any. Are there any others?
Yeah, I have a question. You hinted at it earlier, the idea about optimizing the icon, so to differentiate your icon amongst the sea of all the other icons that are out there. Could you have any hard figures do you want to share with us about how many icons people tried? And I've heard anecdotally it can make a percentage point difference or so as to whether things get clicked or not. So you could share some real figures.
I've worked with a lot of app developers over the years, and I think there's a question about how many people, if you recall, Apple opened up the iOS for third-party development in the summer of 2008 or 2009?
2008.
2008. So how many people have been building mobile apps since 2008 in this room? Raise your hand. Very few of you. How many of you since 2009? Even fewer. How many of you have just started building mobile apps in the last 18 months? Most of you. And I think back to like 2008, 2009 when people first started building apps, and I remember even in the early days there were games, and I won't mention who they were, but they would test different icons. If it was a tower defense game, they might have an icon of a tower, and they might test an icon of whatever the type of characters they're defending or trying to kill are, right? And you would see big differences. People do respond to packaging and merchandising. Like, the differences could be, conversion rates going from 10% to like 35%. They can be factors in orders of magnitude. Because, again, I kind of return to the bottled water example. It's all H2O. Why do you pick any particular bottle of water at the store when you buy one? Some people, have a brand affinity for the idea that their water comes from a certain place. Some people just respond to prettier packaging. So I would really think about those consumer product analogs as you approach, building and merchandising your apps.
I have time. I think we have time for one more question if there's one out there. I can't see because of the light. Nope. Okay. Well, on that note, I want to thank all of our panelists for participating. I want to thank you all for spending your lunchtime with us. And just give them a round of applause.